It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, and I am joined by Eric Sheffer. Eric is a partner here at Barrel of Monks Brewing. He is our taproom manager, and we want to talk about Last Snow, which is a beer from Funky Buddha. This is an OG beer in Florida. This is one of the beers that put them on the map. This at one point was probably the #1 rated porter in the world and inspired so many people to make adjunct style beers. I mean, the whole candy bar stout or pastry stout is in a lot of ways a result of what Funky Buddha did. And I know quite a bit about this beer because I was a brewer at Funky Buddha when this beer was created, so I had a little bit of a hand in creating it. So I haven't wanted to do it because it seems a little bit self-aggrandizing, but this beer is, I mean, I've been gone from that brewery for a very, very long time. It's a very, very different beer. I have nothing to do with what it tastes like now. So I think it was time. It was time to give Funky Buddha the due and talk about a beer that really has done so much for South Florida beer culture and for this style of beer in general. And Eric, I know we were talking before the video about just like these adjuncts and these kind of flavors. This is a coconut coffee porter, but you said that was really inspiring to you the first time you had it.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably about 10 years ago. This, along with maple bacon coffee porter, home brewing back in the day, and I really wanted to do a beer around the holidays, a festive ale, something with flavors, spices, things like that. And everybody's doing pumpkin, and just wanted to do something different. And we always try different beers when we're trying to create a batch of beer, and this was one of the beers we created, a ginger snap porter, and it was one of the best beers that we made at our home in a garage, and quite proud of it. A lot of people enjoyed it, and this helped inspire creating that. And
it cannot be understated how many people drank maple bacon coffee porter, Last Snow, so many, No Crust, so many of the beers in the early days of Funky Buddha, and they decided they wanted to be brewers after that. They decided they want to make beer in their garage. They decided they wanted to do something because the idea of being this creative and doing all these different flavors and putting those together. Listen, Dogfish Head was doing this a long time ago, right? And I was there in the early days of Funky. We were inspired by Dogfish Head. We were inspired by other brewers. So it wasn't the first brewery to do it. But as far as really focusing on that and really going over the top with the flavors and really featuring them prominently enough where there's no way you could miss them, I think was a calling card of Funky early on in the days. I will say this beer has evolved quite a bit, and I don't think I've had this beer in many years. The original batches had it was white chocolate and caramel as well as the coconut and the coffee. This has been kind of stripped down. It's coffee, it's coconut. It's much more subtle. It's much more well balanced. I think it's a really good beer. I like the base beer, the porter. So listen, as you evolve in your brewing to make things shelf stable and to kind of appeal to more palates, I think going in this direction and making it a little more subtle, a little more well integrated, a little more balanced was a wonderful idea.
Yeah, beers typically would, the pastry stouts and things like that would punch you in the face with flavor, and like you said, this is much more subtle, more balanced, and makes it more drinkable, honestly. And you could have more than one where you're drinking a pastry stout, and halfway through the glass you're like, am I going to get through this or not? And this also showed you that making beer could be an art form, and that's what beers like this did for the brewing industry back when I was getting started.
Yeah, Ryan Sense, one of the owners of Funky, was always very passionate about using the culinary ingredients and really using that as art. And I think it's kind of definitely translated through the years and all their success. I love the coffee aspect of this beer. I think it is really well integrated. It doesn't dominate. It doesn't have any of the acrid bitterness that sometimes overly coffeed beers do. I'm not sure if they're still doing the porter here when I was there. Once again, long time ago. But there was a milk porter. I'm not really sure if they're still using lactose and doing that as a milk porter, but it is smooth. It does have a little bit of sweetness, but it's not over the top. You mentioned about the other pastry stouts, you have a little bit and you don't want anymore, right? And we talk about it all the time on Old Favorite Friday. It's almost like a broken record. We drink an imperial stout, we drink a porter, and we go, this is how it's supposed to be done because there's bitterness, it's well balanced. I think they're there with this. They have enough sweetness to balance things out, the roast and things of that nature. The coconut is not syrupy sweet. It's not too much. It's not like they just put a bunch of sweetened coconut flakes in there. Really, really well made. I'm really happy that we had a chance to feature this here for Old Favorite Friday. Eric, any thought? You're a guy that definitely was a big part of all the tastings and stuff like that and the beer dinners. When you have a beer like this that already has so many ingredients in it, are you thinking about doing this with a food item, or are you just thinking, I'm going to drink this thing by itself?
I mean, off the top, it was enjoying it by itself. Honestly, food didn't even enter my mind. I was too busy enjoying the beer itself. Like you said, it's perfectly balanced with the coffee, and it doesn't give you that acidic feel or taste that you'll get in a lot of coffee beers. It's not overwhelming, and the balance of it, I'm also getting like more of. I don't believe there's lactose. I mean, obviously I can be wrong, but because I'm getting a lot more chocolate and roasty flavors, that if I feel like there's lactose, it would have, been more creamy.
Right.
And, this I would have, this is a good by the fire beer.
Yeah.
A cool night, perfect weather right now. Food wise, I mean, obviously you can go with your desserts, hearty dishes. I don't know what I would do as an entree off the top of my head, but I would, obviously when you go with coffee and you get your chocolate roast and your coconut, you typically think desserts.
Yeah.
You could even have like vanilla ice, what's the Greek pastry?
Baklava?
Not baklava, the Italian pastry.
Cannolis?
Cannolis.
This is going to become a Q&A session. Kevin, how many different kinds of desserts from different cultures do you know? And by the way, I know quite a few, so we can do this all day. I think desserts will work really well. You know what I would do dessert-wise with this? I like the idea of doing a really rich raspberry cheesecake.
Okay.
And this is why. I like the richness of that body-wise. I like the fact that it's going to be very sweet and have a little bit of tartness and fruitiness from the raspberries, which is not in the beer. And that coffee and the coconut would balance that out really well.
And it'll give you that creaminess that goes into the coffee as well.
I think that could do really well. But also, I've seen, coconut crusted fillets, things like that could work really well.
Yeah.
You think dark beer, you think steaks, very often, but I think that would work pretty well when it comes to a beer like this. We highly encourage you. Listen, this is a beer that is available. I'm pretty sure this is a seasonal release from these guys. If it's around you and you're in South Florida, you already know about this beer, because if you're into craft beer and you are watching this channel, you know about Funky Buddha. You've probably had Last Snow before. But if you haven't picked it up in a while, obviously we recommend that you do that. And please keep telling us what we should be drinking next week for Old Favorite Friday. Are there any other classic Florida beers that we haven't done? We've done Jai Alai and Maduro from Cigar City. We've done a few other beers from some of the more older legacy breweries down here. I think is this the first Funky Buddha beer we've ever done?
First one I recall.
I'm not sure. I don't know. We've asked a lot of questions of ourselves on this. I think the entire thing,
today.
We don't even know there's a camera. We're just having a conversation. You guys happen to be here. But thank you guys very much. Please look around the channel, see longer conversation about all these great beers that we have reviewed in Old Favorite Friday, and trying to kind of encourage you guys to get out there and give some respect to some beers you might not have thought about in a while. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.